Is fascism inevitable under capitalism? I'm not a theory nerd. Yes. Capitalism has inherent contradictions baked into it in the form of constant class antagonism. The two classes, albeit reductive, can be described as the wage laboring class, the proletariat, and those who own capital, the capital ownership class, the bosses, the owners, which is the bourgeois class. These two classes have direct class interests that are at odds with one another. Workers want to work the least amount of time for the most amount of pay, and bosses and capital owners want you to work the most amount of time for the least amount of pay. And there is no way to resolve this constant class battle. There are ways to alleviate the pressure. A welfare state will offer some help in the continuation of capitalism, some regulations placed upon the markets. Having said that, however, this does not actually solve the problem. That class antagonism will always exist. Inevitably, the moneyed class, the bourgeois capital owners, will always win because money is power, and capitalism always leans in the direction of the consolidation of power in the hands of the few against the interests of the many. This is an inherently undemocratic process. The greatest lie ever told, however, is the notion that this structure is actually the most democratic structure. For a time, this was an evolution from previous formations. Bourgeois revolutions have brought about the liberal democracy, the liberal capitalist democracy that we saw as bringing a bounty of civil liberties alongside it. So yes, capitalism initially was an evolution from previous forms of governance. Having said that, however, capitalism has very clearly outlived its usefulness. The next stage in our evolution is constantly stopped by that very same consolidated power groups. They tell you that there is no alternative to capitalism. They lie to you all the time. They scare you into submission. They make you think there is no alternative, and the alternative would be far more devastating. There are attempts made towards evolving away from this consolidation of power, and yet those attempts are always thwarted. Under the Cold War, the American government and Western governments actively intervened in these initiatives that the rest of the world was engaging in, partially because that very same class dynamic also exists in a larger scale between the global South that is hyper exploited and the moneyed interests in the Western world, the developed Western world. We must continue at a time when profit rates continue to decline, because that is an inevitability under capitalism. And the best possible way to create profit is to tamper with the only malleable aspect of profit, which is labor. Labor is the only movable part of the profit structure. How do you make sure that labor costs stay relatively low? In developed countries, labor costs obviously increase. People demand more when they have more. People recognize their own material conditions.